This is WTVO TV channel 17, Rockford, Illinois. It's 5 o'clock. Time now, Newswatch 17 to 5 o'clock report. Good evening, everybody, on this Wednesday, September 18th, 1985. On a Wednesday, Peter Wiggins reporting in the Newswatch on Newswatch 17 to 5 p.m. report. The need for equity in school funding, the proposed reorganization of school districts, and question and concern in state aid for transport and public and private school students drew lively debate Tuesday at Harlan High School. Although no definite conclusion were reached on the informative meeting sponsored by the Northern Illinois Cooperative Education, most state legislatures, administrators, teachers, and parents in attendance seemed convinced that the recently approved education reform package is a step in the right direction. The most heated remarks centered on the private school transportation and plan, which will give their parents in Illinois to send their children to private schools and live more than 1.5 miles from these 3 schools, with reimbursement from a transportation cost.
The manager here told us
under this plan, parents of children in public schools who will be eligible for transportation costs to their children and live more than 1.5 miles from schools and do not have access to the free transportation. Jill Manor, a member of the League of Women Voters and Legislation, Education and Direction, opposes the plan. The state has no business in getting involved with funding private transportation. This can start a horrendous precedent. Janet Clark, superintendent of Brookfield School District and a panelist at the meeting, agreed. Clark questioned the constitutionality of the plan had any money should the state has for education should be put in public schools. Our district is not even able to meet its payroll next month. State funds should be for public schools. State Representative Gene Hoppin, Republican, and Elmer, however, noted that the more than half of the money in the plan would be channeled to the public school students. He added that the many districts in the state of transportation private school students and receiving reimbursement. The aid is limited to $50 per student this year, $100 next year, and the average cost of transporting a student by public transportation from the 3rd year on. That cost is an estimated about $150 per student and per year. The money will be the current school year will be given to parents in about a year. State officials estimated 188,000 parents would be eligible for the reimbursement at the state under the new legislation. If all the eligible parents took advantage of the plan, it would cost the state about $9.4 million during the first year. Hoffman said one of his favorite parts of the school reform package, which addresses one of 6 issues, is the provision for reorganizing districts throughout the state. Under this provision, school districts throughout the state with fewer than 1,000 students are being asked to study plans for join with the larger districts. The merger proposals will be presented to residents of their school districts for final approval. State officials, including Hoffman, contend that in most cases that larger districts can offer students more varied programs and better academic training. According to figures, 24% of all high school students have been in the state have less than 200 students, and 40% have less than 400. Those small schools cannot offer the students the same broad-based offered by larger districts. More importantly, the districts throughout the state have a more equal size. The opportunity for quality education would be improved because the state would be able to more equitably distribute its money. The education reform plan approved by the state this summer has recently been distributed to school officials throughout the state who are in the process of reviewing the material and starting to implement some changes. Irvin Miller, superintendent of Harlem Schools, who served as moderator, is optimistic about the plan. It is important that the state legislature recognizes education as a priority and addresses it as an important ingredient in our state. Sam Miller is president of the Northern Illinois Cooperative Education. This plan is not cast in stone, but it will be produce changes. It is good that we are looking at ways that we can improve education. I feel this is just the beginning. Our panelists included State Senator Joyce Holmberg, Democrat of Rockford, and State Representative E.J. Georgie, Democrat of Rockford. In Byron, 14 years after construction planning began and nearly $3.3 billion over the original cost estimates, the Commonwealth Edison Company's nuclear power plant at Byron has been put into commercial service. And that's been net control over Byron's unit number 1 reactor has turned over to Edison load dispatcher Monday in Lombard. Was made Tuesday in Rockford by Tom McTaggart, superintendent of the company's Rock River division. The announcement came when McTaggart said there was a satisfactory review by Edison engineers over the data provided during the 6-month testing program, in which all plant function was examined despite the long and sometimes controversial wait. Byron was the first nuclear plant in the United States to temporarily deny an operating license. McTaggart said Edison officials are not in a celebratory mood. I'll say this is a big milestone for us and we feel a sense of accomplishment, he said, but I don't feel there's a necessarily be a sense of relief to be ahead. What do you need to celebrate? There have been a lot of things we had to be overcome at Byron, no matter what we obstacles been thrown at us, we've been able to overcome it. These obstacles, McIntyre said, include an intervention by area environmental groups during the lessons and hearings before the Atomic Safety and Licensing Board, and financial obstacles created by rising interest rates and inflation. Street Coupons investment in Unit Number 1, Edison has petitioned the Illinois Commerce Commission for a $583 million annual revenue increase, fat an estimated 12% increase in customer rates. The ICC is scheduled to rule on a request by late October. The increased rates will be seen in customer bills beginning in December, McIntyre said. Because Byron is in a nuclear facility, customers will pay less than an increase than whether coal or oil-fired, McIntyre said. By the token, he said Edison's Northern Illinois customers would save $185 million each year. They otherwise would pay for the increased rates. A spokesman for groups who oppose the plant, Stanley Campbell for the Rockford-based Mississippi Alliance of the Environment, he said he fears the $4.18 billion plant will be a necessary burden to the consumers for many years to come. It's going to be expensive, and what you're seeing the end of the expenses yet. When in full $4 billion will be put in a rate base, the consumers will not only have to pay for the plant, but so for another 16% interest per year for the existing stockholders. As a result of these cost increases, consumers will probably cut back into their use of electricity, which will make it a plant even less than needed than it was now. That is too bad. They couldn't have found some way to delay the plant until it's needed. The Byron plant has gone strict to the median needs during the period of peak usage as well as the future power demands. McIntyre said Edison has projected 2.5% to 4% yearly increase in demand for electricity for the year 2000, he said. That safe and other intervenor groups have projected leveling off and eventual decline in electrical use. McIntyre said that Edison will need to build yet another plant, probably a small coal-fired plant by 1998. That will be addition to the Braidwood nuclear plant still under construction. I don't think any of us know with enough certainty where the economy is going to be in the future, but if our demand projections are correct and we don't build unnecessary facilities, the result could be energy rationing and even brownouts. McIntyre said in that event we could be forced to quickly compensate by building costly gas-fired turbines that would have been forced to depend on foreign fuel sources. Work is continuing at Byron on the Unit 2 reactor, which McIntyre said will receive its fuel load next hour, because it's scheduled to become fully operational by October 1986. Unit 1 and 2 are expected to operate at full power around the clock, he said.
People helping other people.
Whittington says he's spoken to Jay
Paul Jones, a driver of a Mass Transit District of the RF.
who was honored by Boston.
Paul Jones, driver of the Rockford Mass Transit District bus that struck and killed a teenage girl Monday, has been charged with failure to yield right away to a pedestrian. Killed in an accident was Betsy Crittenden, 13 of 316 South 4th Street. The girl died from abdominal injuries she suffered while she went over the bus while walking to Lincoln Middle School about 7:30 a.m. According to police, investigation that was surrounding the tragedy wouldn't. Around then, questions regarding student safety lingered. Accordingly to school district officials, sympathy for both the driver and family of the victim was expressed by those involved in the incident. According to police reports, Johns, 57-year-old from 1105 Irvin Avenue, had dropped off passengers on Charles Street and was started to turn 7th and 10th Street when an accident occurred. In a statement, the police officers, Jones said his vision was blocked by passengers on the bus. He stated passengers were even standing all the way to the front of the bus, even standing and stepping well. Jones added to the report that he was checked his mirrors before proceeded, but did not see the girl. He stopped when passengers yelled that he had hit a person. Daniel Doyle, Winnebago County State Attorney, whose office investigated the fatal accident, said when a death occurs, officers normally reviews the circumstances, but there was no evidence to support prosecution for reckless homicide. According to both Doyle and police officers, there are no state laws restricting the number of passengers on public transportation vehicles, and none that prevents passengers from sending in a mass surveillance. John Pippin, Executive Director of Rockford Mass Transit District, said the exact number of passengers on the bus is still under investigation. At this time, we cannot determine how many people were in the bus. Pippin said some had just been discharged and some were apparently moved to let them get off. We're in the process of moving back, blocking his vision in a moment. In a tragic situation for both the family and our driver, he's been with us for 12 years and is a good Christian man with a good record as a driver. Pippin expects Jones to be driving again soon. It is important for him to drive soon. Even minor accidents can be devastating to an employee. They are professionals, but not without feelings. Psychology is important to get back and drive again. Although Crittenden was not a passenger on the bus, the accident weighed heavily on the minds of Rockford police and public school bus drivers and staff members. Pat Trentano, Director of Transportation for Rockford Schools, feels frustrated by the differences in rules governing children to ride on school buses and rules for children to ride to school. On public transportation on buses, every student must have a seat, and the bus driver waits until students are seated before proceeding. But those rules do apply to public transportation, not because they are. It's two separate state agencies patrolling the wheels. It's frustrating. According to state law, school district buses to children who live about 1.5 miles or more away from the school they attend, unless public transportation is provided. The public transportation available, such as RMTD, students bus provided to the buses. Last year, about 5,000 students rode RMTD buses at each day. Rockford schools bus about 13,000 each day. This year, it's a lesser ship of Trinity, but it's would see the vacant said that school children should be transported at the same set of rails. Trinity that radio staff were very quiet yesterday. Everybody hopes it will never happen to them. We have a lot of sympathy for the driver girl's family.
Step together. Get in shape for Wiggins invites you to our open house at any of our mass locations.
Greater Rockford Airport and officials signed an agreement Tuesday with Lawson and Darby Incorporated for architectural and related services for the $4.9 million terminal to be built next year. The agreement calls for a payment of 6% of the actual construction cost of the Rockford firm of architects. First fee approximately about $295,000. The firm will be designed the terminal building and its landscaping and provide site development plans. As an option for an additional 1.5%, at Lawson and Darby affiliate would be provide construction project management. The airport did not receive the optional contract for the approval Tuesday night and expected to be considered at a later meeting. Lawyer Jim Keeling, who has handled much of the new terminal legal work for Thomas Keeling and more Airport Council, with a Lawson Darby contract at 6%, gives the airport a low-cost figure for professional services favorable to the taxpayers. Keeling said. Airport manager Bill Grady said that $4.9 million of the proceeds from the airport's new recent terminal bill and bond issue had been invested $4.4 million of the amount in government securities. As construction of new terminal is planned to begin in the 1986 construction season, which opening for use in the spring of 1987. However, business Tuesday night, the airport board received the tentative schedule for the landings and takeoffs of the British Airways consort's supersonic transport, which will use Rockford as a space for two examinations to London, one leaving October 22nd and leaving November 7th. The SSC will land at Greater Rockford Airport about 2:50 p.m. on October 21st, 29th, and November 6th. On the following days, in each case, October 22nd, 30th, and November 7th, the SSC will take off from Rockford about 8:30 a.m. and authorized advertising for kids. A bid for a new automobile to place the 1982 Oldsmobile Alexander Grady. Received Federal Department of Transportation confirmation of Frontier Airlines' new Rockford schedules, in which the airline has granted exception to it would be regarded to provide only one daily round trip to a major hub rather than two. Frontier is now required by DOT to maintain its Rockford services as a suitable airline that's bound to begin service.
Let me ask you. Yeah. Gut, beard, well not you this, but gut, beard. Red Sox players proudly displaying their bushy...
Washington in a shift to position. President Reagan said Tuesday that his November summit with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev should be aimed at producing results but contain it to rule out health and the research on defense weapons in space that has got to be more than acquaintance, said Reagan, was in recent weeks has held down expected for the summit by building an opportunity to set an agreement. Gorbachev has said the November 1920 summit in Geneva should be produce substantial results. And first press conference since cancer surgery on July 13th, Reagan said he hopes that the summit will leave and lessen the threat of the nuclear war. It worries me that a little bit that the Soviets could go out of their way to try to raise expectations. Maybe we were overly concerned, but we were worried that might build up an euphoria and people might expect something of a near miracle to come out of the summit. But a research of a strategic defense initiative, so-called Star Wars, Reagan said it's going to continue and that they would be used as a bargaining chip in the talks with Gorbachev. Gorbachev has said in effect that the United States would help the Star Wars Soviets to respond with proposals for sharp reductions in numbers and offensive weapons. Reagan said he was willing to negotiate restrictions to go on deployment of defense weapons in space. When asked if they would be also part of our testing included, he said he viewed the testing as part of research. He reiterated that the United States is behind the Soviets' defensive space weapons. We are playing in catch-up, he said. Asked whether it would be necessary for him to get along with Gorbachev at a summit that produced results, Reagan said, "Yeah, I wasn't going to keep him friendship ring or anything, but he said it was not necessary for the two-year leaders to love like each other, and that the important thing is listening in the threat of war." Reagan also used his first press conference since June 18th to suggest that the balance of payments deficit is not a serious threat, even while it makes the United States a debtor nation to the first time in 71 years. Reagan suggested that the United States is actually in good position, saying that we were.
Yeah. What's going on?
What's going on?
Josh Jonah has been a kindergarten teacher for the past 20 years, but Monday expected to be to face one of the greatest challenges of his career. A full-day kindergarten class in one of the Rockford public schools. I'm very excited about the plan. I have felt it we need for a long time. I always went out of time, said Donald teaches at Gregory Elementary School at 4020 Carroll Court on the city's east side. Chris Nessis, who will be the district's ever full-day kindergarten teacher this year at Ellis Elementary School at 1520 Elm Street on the city's west side had similar thoughts too. From the first time I heard about this concept, I've been interested in.
I gotta tell you something.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It said that's what it taught elementary school classes for 7 years. I'm really excited about it, judging from parental reaction to this new program for Rockford Public Schools, which begins on Monday full-day kindergarten.
I did a little bit, but it's really more mustache and long sideburns during finals in college. That was my rebellion against finals.
According to Robert Kellogg, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, there were twice as many as applicants as available spots in the program at all schools were 71 kindergarteners.
Here's going to get a little bit chilly.
Rockford Public Works Department also was listed number 2 man. Dan Minor, 35, Department Chief Administrative Officer, Executive Assistant Director Rob Spear said Tuesday he has resigned to take a position in Corvallis, Oregon. Spear's resignation, effective November 1st, was announced to the Rockford City Council Monday night by Mayor John McNamara. Spears taking the position within the University of Iowa City. Minor said he was submitted his resignation 3 weeks ago, but there was not publicly announced. He said was effective September 25th for Corvallis. Minor said he will plan and manager for utilities and transportation services. A public works staff member since February 1975. Minor filled an acting director at the department store before Spears' arrival in December 1981. He said he was not a candidate for the top post at the time and didn't meet the requirements that he was specified for the job, basically because I was not a registered engineer. Maynard said he would not come out whether he Bonn, West Germany, and Secretary and Chancellor Helmut Kohl's office has fled to Communist East Germany on the first spy case to hit the nation's highest office since a 1974 scandal toppled Willy Brandt, officials said Tuesday. The defection marked the latest in a drum fire of espionage incidents that began rocking Kohl's conservative coalition government last month. The schedule earlier touched the president's office and shook up Bonn's spy system. West Germany radio cited Bonn's security. Source said the latest vector hurt Astrid Wilner may have been accessed to secret information about Star Wars and about a French technology project led by France. Star Wars is a term by which the U.S. strategic defense initiative, a space-based defense system against nuclear missiles, is commonly known. Government officials said the 45-year-old secretary who had worked for the Chancellor's office for 12 years had no access to material about the 2 projects. Wilner fled to East Germany with her husband Herbert, Chief Federal Prosecutor Kurt Reagan. Both of them were under investigation and suspicion of spying. Her 59-year-old husband worked in a foundation which is clearly tied to the Junior Pole and coalition government and had once been a member of that. In New York, the funding papers will take a serious issue on Thanksgiving Day. More than 100 of the nation's most popular cartoonists devote today panels to world hunger. The idea was proposed by Gary Trudeau, whose tunes very often grapples with controversial issues, but Trudeau has recruited such sponsors as 2 cartoonists to deal with a less topical affair. Charles Schultz, creator Peanuts, and Milton Caniff will draw Steve Canyon. So far, 1 in 14 cartoonists have enlisted to the project, which includes all the biggest names and more expected, said David Stanford, who edits Trudeau's books for Holt Reinhard Winston. The response has been great. It looks like pretty much the entire comics page was devoted to hunger, said Stanford. It looks like it's going to be a blockbuster, kind of said. Trudeau was not available for comment, but Stanford said Trudeau was donated proceeds from his most recent book, Certain Chronicle of the United States of America, for after recording sessions. The African Family Relief came up with the idea called Schultz and Kenneth. The 3 sent out a letter to the fellow syndicate cartoons telling them they could have their feature touch upon the subject line without leaving heavy-handed in their own way, without changing their character to a strip, Stanford said. The idea, Stanford says, not to turn the comics page into a Pollyanna track. The real power of the thing will be cumulative, which will artists deal with the issues in a way with humor part of it. In Chicago a year ago, George Blankstein was declared dead by the Social Security Administration. The 68-year-old Northwestern University professor has been trying to prove the agency wrong ever since. It's a terrible commentary on the bureaucracy, the political science professor said Tuesday. Maker and Social Security computers showed Blankstein had died August 6, 1984, said Colleen Sensenbrenner, the Social Security office manager, said she believes that Blankstein officially rejoined the living Tuesday afternoon. Despite available assurance that Blankstein today was still receiving the notices saying he's dead. Chuck Bennett, the Social Security's office branch chief in the Beneficiary Service, said Blankstein will be notified and writing that the situation should have been cleaned up and that he can return to living. We don't have a letter that says you're alive, Bennett said. In world news, South African police used tear gas and rubber bullets against mixed-race students and teachers protesting closed schools. The Senate reversed itself. Tuesday voted 51-44 for an immigration bill amendment of law. 350,000 foreigners entered the country as temporary farm laborers. In business news, Freeport-based Newell Company announced Tuesday that it's trying to take over the Willoughby Rat Company of Westbourne, Massachusetts, and White, sponsored by Same with the Vigorously post the move. A new store, Roseland Storm Center, will be open in downtown Belvedere in early November. The official of an economic development group announced Tuesday. And increased foreign competition as Drummond Cresswell Corporation try to cut operating costs. Okay, now on the weather. Right now at Rockford Airport at 5 o'clock on September 18, 1985 on a Wednesday. 85 degrees the temperature with heat index of 87 degrees. A dew point about 65 degrees and humidity 51%. Barometer 3.09 inches. Visibly 10 miles per hour. Wind south about 13. Scatter clouds. Here.
Signing autographs for a group of young people. John Farrell said he's
okay, around the region, it is 85 at O'Hare in Chicago, 87 in Chicago Midway, 85 in Peoria and Bloomington and Decatur and Mattoon, 81 in Mount Vernon, 83 in Carbondale, 87 in Champaign, 85 in St. Louis and in Jefferson City, Missouri, 86 in Columbia, 85 in Quincy, 89 in Kirkville, 86 in Kansas City, 81 in St. Joseph, 87 in Omaha, Nebraska, 90 in Des Moines, 88 in Mason City, 89 in Waterloo, 90 in Cedar Rapids and in Iowa City and Davenport, Iowa, 85 in Dubuque, Iowa, 83 in Madison and Janesville, Wisconsin and 77 in Milwaukee. Here.
It does take time, but he's very helpful. Back there.
Let's see, Ellsbury has a little bit of growth going on.
Brandon Nation, a winter storm warning was posted Tuesday for the Rocky Mountains.
Yes.
West of the Continental Divide, with late summer rain showers dotted the southeast and far west. More than a foot of snow was forecasted northwest and Montana by Wednesday afternoon. Forecasters said the snow level is expected to drop out 45 feet, present heavy accumulation of major highway passes. Showers and thunderstorms prevailed over the Florida Peninsula, southeast Georgia, and the Texas coast and the upper Mississippi Valley to the western Great Lakes. Showers range from the northern Pacific coast to western Montana. Gustly southerly winds at 20 to 35 miles per hour rolled over the southern and central plains with the middle Mississippi Valley and the Great Lakes, while light winds and low humidity and temperatures mostly in 70s prevailed in 8s and early afternoon temperatures reached the upper 80s and around 90 parts of Kansas and Nebraska, while the northern Rockies had regions of 40s to low 50s. Today's forecast called for snow at the divide. So, forecast for
Beer night until November 1st.
It's a great idea.
Rockford vicinity, partly cloudy tonight, low about mid-60s, about 65 degrees. Thursday, partly sunny, very warm and humid, high 85 to 90 degrees. Thursday, partly sunny skies, breezy and very warm, high 80.
Tonight on News Center 5 and 11.
49 degrees and low 64 to 69 degrees. Wind southwest about 15-20 miles per hour. For Friday, variable condensation, warm with intentional showers and thunderstorms, high 80 degrees and low about 55 to 60 degrees. Saturday, partly cloudy and cooler, high 70-75 degrees, lows about 50-55 degrees. And Sunday, hot to sunny, little temperature change, high 70-75 degrees, lows about 50-55 degrees. Temperatures over the next 5 days will average 48 degrees above normals. Sunrise today, 6:39 p.m. and sunrise Thursday, 6:40 and sunset today, 7:01. And this date in weather history back in 1926. Saturday, September 18th, 1926, the Great Miami Hurricane has a center passed over the city back in that date, with pressure at 27.61 inches, wind at 123 miles per hour for 5 minutes, and 138 miles per hour for 2 minutes. 372 were killed. Oh, that was a catastrophic hurricane. Okay, let's get on to the sports here. Tonight, the Chicago White Sox are at the Comiskey Park taking on the California Angels, while the Chicago Cubs are in New York taking on the Mets. Chicago defense holdout Al Harris and Todd Bell are unsurprised. The Chicago Bears are doing so well without their services by both apparently and are prepared to sit out the current National Football League. Harris was in town, thinks the Bears have not been willing to compensate him what he believes he deserves. Bell contacted his home in Middletown, Ohio, refused to comment on most questions. Jerry Vellini, the Bears general manager, hasn't talked to either of the players' agents for more than 2 weeks, and the team apparently is set to go throughout the session without them. At this point, you have to wonder how much they would be want to play football. Vinny said we felt about that football in a team game. 1 and 2 plays aren't going to make a difference. So far, it's an as the Bears have won their first 2 games, and the defense been contended except for the first half of it. A Tampa Bay game when the team gives up 28 points and 38-20 triumph. Defense was superb plus Sunday's 27 victory over New England. I'm not surprised, why should I be? Said Bell, who was great. Aged as such, should know I haven't watched them on television, but I've read some quotes about them. Bell said he has been staying in shape by Brandon Hurst, who played 2 positions last year and beat out Ricky Wilbur Marshall at the linebacker spot. Said the Bears have not come close to the offering him what he thinks he's worth. Basically, I played out my opinion. They were expecting Wilbur to beat me out at linebacker, but he didn't. Wilbur was paid $493,000, got $145,000. I'll play out my opinion and negotiate in good faith, but the offer we got was low. We couldn't believe it, and Harris said the Bears offered him $275,000, and it's not that the area of $493,000 he added. They were offered teams interested in me, and they backed off. I played 2 positions for the Bears, and there were not too many players. who can do that with the Bears' complicated off defenses. Here's like Bell City is prepared to sit out the season. Anyone team to take a step like this, you have to be prepared. St. Harrison's agent is even locked facing Phoenix, Arizona. Harrison's been followed by the Bears by reading about them and watching them on TV. People might think I'd want to see them lose, but it isn't so. If I were playing in someone else was sitting out, I want them to wish me well. Bell seemed to be more subdued instead. And usually this time of the year I'm playing football, but this is a different situation.
There's simply no other place.
Chicago's second seeded and mounted over shoulder than $150,000. Virginia Slims at Chicago tennis tournament Tuesday by pulling out a week long competition because of back injury. Men took over 23-7 energy during the practice session before the tournament and met where coach Betty Stoven, trainer Don Padu, decided to pull out. I am very happy living in Chicago. And being in Chicago felt like I could not give 100% and it would be shortchanging both the fans and the tournament. I suffered an injury before coming to Chicago during a practice session. It was traded Monday before playing her doubles match, said Stowe. Manakova, Czechoslovakian partner Wendy Turnbull of Australia, were easy winners in the doubles match on Monday. Manakova, who was the number 3 among the world's female tennis players following her recent U.S. Open championship, was treated Tuesday morning by a pilot, but she said felt similarly limited in her movement and actually got worse, Stowe said. When I treated her again on Tuesday, her back appeared to be stiffer than it was on Monday, pilot said. Pilot and said Manakova likely aggravated the injury during her practice session in the doubles match. It was decided it would be the best that she simply not try to compete and aggravate the injury even more, she said. Rowing on the Rock, an exhibition sponsored by the group interested in starting a local rowing club, will be held in the Rock River on Saturday, September 28th. The exhibition began about 11:30 a.m. will be held in the Mississippi Cornerstone YMCA. World races including teams from University of Iowa and University of Wisconsin, and as well some club teams kick off the day's activities at 1 p.m. to be a celebrity tour and racing. 1:15 p.m. spectators invited to try rowing the boat. And that is going to be it for the Newswatch 17 and 5 p.m. warning this Wednesday, September 18, 1985. Viewers, and have a good evening. Good night to be the MC now on Tom Brook at 5:30. Bill Rich will be back with Newswatch 17.6. Have a good evening.